and welcome to a very vague TBR for the rest of the year. So I'm not usually one to make TBRs for every month. I tend to just, depending on what books I decide I want to buy at the bookshop or what books are available at the library, I tend to just, read whatever, and I tend to have very vague ideas about what I maybe want to get to next, but honestly it just kind of depends what I see and what I kind of decide I really want to read. But since joining BookTube, I have I've seen a lot of other people do TBRs, so I did kind of decide to actually make just a bit of a note for some books that I would really like to some books that I would really like to read at least by the end of the year, which is why this is a very vague TBR, but I definitely want to at least get to most of these by the end of this year. Either just because I think there are some perhaps, fantasy books that I missed out on a lot. There's a lot of sort of really popular series that I haven't read that I really feel I need to get to. And also just some that I just have got an interest for, and I'm just like, I definitely want to read this ASAP really, because I've heard good things about it and I really want to read it. So the first one that I am going to be reading, because I have got a copy of it, is The Gunslinger, which is the first book in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Steve Talks About Books and Stuff is going to be doing a group read-along for this entire series, reading one book a month starting in August, so I'm going to be joining in with that, and I just so happened to see when I was in the library last week that they had a copy of The Gunslinger, so I thought, right, I'll pick this up whilst I've got a hold of it, and I will definitely therefore be able to join in with that. So yeah, I've never read any Stephen King, I've never read The Dark Tower before, so this is definitely sort of quite a well-known popular fantasy series that I am looking forward to reading. And I'll leave a link to Steve's forum for the group read along, as well as his channel, in my description if you're also interested in reading that series. Up next is Fireborn by Rosario Munda. It's one I've seen doing the rounds on BookTube, and I've just been hearing so many good things about it and its sequel Flavorfall, so I really, really want to get to it. Also, just this cover is gorgeous, I definitely want to buy it. And I'm really, really interested to see what this book is going to be about and whether it lives up to the hype for me. Up next is Generation Misfits by Akemi Dawn Bowman. Akemi Dawn Bowman is my favourite author, and this is her debut into middle grade. Now, whilst I don't tend to really read middle grade these days, it's a Bowman book, so I'm gonna read it. So that came out earlier this month, and it just so happened I kind of put myself on a book buying ban for this month, as I had some other things I needed to buy this month that I couldn't really make any room for books. So I'm definitely going to be getting to that one in the next couple of months. This year I started reading the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, so I definitely would like to read Assassin's Quest, the last book in the trilogy, by the end of the year. I read Assassin's Apprentice back in January, I've just finished Royal Assassin last month in June, so God knows if it'll be another 5 months before I get to it, or if I'll maybe try and get to it soon, but I really, really enjoyed Royal Assassin, so I think it will be sooner rather than later. I also really want to get into The Wheel of Time, starting with Eye of the World, but because I haven't really, I've never read it, it just completely flew under my radar for years about how it was such a huge, big fantasy series, and I just had never heard of it until about a year ago. And people tell me really good things, so I definitely really want to start getting into it. But just as a fun little comparison, I'm going to wait until after the show has come out, which I believe is now going to be in November. I think we got told that the other day. Because 9 times out of 10, if there's a book to movie adaptation, I will have either read the book beforehand, or I deliberately go and read the book before going anywhere near the show or the movie. And just for fun, I've decided that I'm deliberately not going to read The Eye of the World until I've finished watching the series 1 of the show, just to do a quick comparison on what I think just taking the show as is, as my first experience of The Wheel of Time, versus then reading the book and actually getting the sort of original story. I kind of just want to do a fun little comparison and see if any of my opinions change, or if I then go back to watching the show and go, oh, how did I not see that, or how did I think that in the first place just watching it. So yeah, so I'm going to get to Eye of the World, so that will probably be December. Speaking of fantasy series that are really popular that I've never read, First Law. I really want to read the First Law trilogy at some point. I definitely want to, I think, just start at least the first book by the end of the year. As I said, I'm sort of in the sort of fantasy corner of BookTube, yet there's a lot of very popular fantasy series that I have not read, and I really feel I should at least give them a go. In that same vein, continuing Cosmere. So I've read Mistborn Era 1 and I am caught up with Mistborn Era 2, you know, highly anticipating the next installment of that series. And I recently just sort of asked on a group chat which books I should go with next. So I got recommended Elantris and Warbreaker, so I think I'll definitely get to one or both of those by the end of the year, and then move my way through more Cosmere once I'm done with those two, because yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to actually reading just more Sanderson and more of this series that takes place in the same universe, and seeing what, you know, Easter eggs and little things I can pick up as they go along. I think it sounds like a really fun idea, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. Another really popular book that's been out recently, that's been making lots of rounds, is Sword of KAIGEN. It's another one that I've heard lots and lots of people talk about, and I just have not got around to it, so I definitely want to get to that as soon as possible. Ace of Spades came out recently, and that's one that's really piqued my interest. So I just think it sounds a really, really good book. So, and the more people that have sort of read it, that's coming out with really sort of raving reviews, it's just bumped really high up to my TBR. So I think I'll definitely be getting to that in like the next couple of months, or sooner rather than later. Another one is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is one that I have seen, you know, I saw the cover reveal for it and things, and it sort of really interested me. You know, it's sort of like a sort of Greek mythology sort of story. And it's one that Elsa, the French book dreamer, has been raving about, so she's usually got quite good taste in books, so I'm definitely going to, I think, be checking that out, because she promises that it's very good. A recent recommendation to me was Rivers of London. This is a sort of fantasy story that a lot of people seem to have read, but I hadn't even heard of it until one of my friend's flatmates sort of recommended it to me, and I just thought it sounded really good fun, and I definitely want to get to that as soon as possible. These are the ones that I've mentioned, I think, in my summer book tag as ones I wanted to read by the end of the summer. So Timekeeper, Clockwork Dynasty, Library of the Dead, Blackwing's Beating are sort of a lot of books that I have, again, just heard about from other booktubers or had recommended to me, or just sort of found. I was in a bit of a sort of steampunk mood for a while, so that's where I got Timekeeper and Clockwork Dynasty from. So I'm still in a steampunk mood. I really, really want to go out and find copies of those books and read those as soon as possible. And yeah, I said back in like the beginning of June I was going to read them this summer, and it's almost August, so I'll maybe try and get to them next month, so that I can at least keep to that, you know, reading them in the summer promise that I made to myself. This is one I should have read already, and it's Aoife's Quest, and I ordered this last month from Book Depository. It still hasn't turned up. My other book that I ordered at the time has. So I sent them an email just yesterday to like, hey, where's this book? So hopefully that'll arrive soon, or I'll at least get a refund if it's got lost in the post or something, but you know, it probably won't. I really want to read this book. It's about sort of like Celtic warrior princess, and I was in a bit of a mood to read some sort of like Celtic stuff for a while, so yeah, I'd like for that to either turn up soon or get another copy, because I really want to read that. Book Depository just emailed me to say that they can't get another copy for me, so they're going to refund it. It got lost in the post. I'm very upset because it looked good, but at least they're giving me my money back. That was unexpected. One book that I meaning to read since it came out was You Should See Me in a Crown, but like that came out like last year, maybe even the year before, I can't remember, and I still haven't read it. And there's also some releases coming out later in the year. Good Girl, Bad Blood is the trilogy of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and no, Good Girl, Bad Blood is the second book. It's As Good as Dead, I think, is the last one. I don't know. They've all got the word good in them. Yeah, As Good as Dead, I think, is the third book in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, and I absolutely love that series, so very much looking forward to that when it releases, I think in September, as well as Descendants of the First by Randy K. and Maya, which is the sequel to Daughters of Enri, which I also want to reread before Descendants of the First comes out, so I remember what happens. This is a really fantastic fantasy book inspired by ancient Nigeria and all that sort of magic, sort of West African magic. I definitely highly recommend this book. It's such a good series so far. And I could honestly sit here all day and talk about all the books that I really want to read that I haven't gotten to yet, but those are the ones that, like, as I said, this was a really vague TBR, so those are the ones that, if I haven't read them by the end of the year, I will be annoyed with myself. Obviously that won't be all I read. I've got lots of other books I want to read, but those are the ones I'm like, yeah, definitely those to read by the end of the year. So yeah, check back in December and see how well I did with all of these. I might even make a video in December and see if I actually did manage to get to all of these, so that'll be interesting. But let me know what books you want to read by the end of the year. Have you read any of the books I've mentioned on this list? Or do you think I should prioritise some over others? What do you think? Definitely let me know. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.